Somewhere in the Amazon, the research team stops transmitting mid-expedition, not because of equipment failure, not because of weather. They found something, collected it, and then went quiet. What was in that jar has never been officially named. The study was withdrawn. The river it came from is now restricted. Before we go any further, if you haven't subscribed to Cryptic Finds, do it now, because what we're about to uncover doesn't stay in the jungle. The Amazon covers over 5.5 million square kilometers. It holds an estimated 10% of all life on Earth, most of it still unnamed, still unstudied, still untouched. Scientists have catalogued roughly one new species every other day for the past decade. And yet, by their own estimates, they've barely scratched the surface. Whatever is living in that forest, it has had millions of years to evolve without us watching. 10. The forest that shouldn't exist. The Amazon doesn't just sit inside the Earth's climate system, it runs it every single day. The trees here release around 20 billion tons of water vapor into the atmosphere. That moisture forms what scientists call flying rivers, invisible aerial streams that carry rainfall across an entire continent, feeding farmland thousands of kilometers away from the jungle itself. Without the Amazon, the rainfall stops, the soil dries, and within decades, some of the most fertile land in the world becomes something closer to a wasteland. The year is what doesn't get talked about. This system, this self-sustaining atmospheric engine, is performing beyond what the forest's own biomass should be capable of producing. The numbers don't fully add up. Something beneath that canopy is amplifying the process. And as of now, no one has identified what. The Amazon isn't just alive, it is operating like something that understands exactly what it is doing, and that is just what is happening above ground. 9. The river that flows underground for millions of years, the Amazon kept a secret directly beneath itself. 4 kilometers underground, running almost the entire length of the surface river above it, flows a second river, slower, wider, almost completely invisible to everything we had built to detect it. Scientists named it the Hamza River, and it was found entirely by accident, buried inside decades of abandoned oil, drilling data that no one had thought to reanalyze. It had been there the whole time. What makes this unsettling isn't just its size, it is the implication. If something this significant, this vast went undetected for this long, directly beneath one of the most studied ecosystems on the planet, the question that follows is difficult to dismiss. What else is down there? The Hamza doesn't behave like a normal river. It moves in near total darkness through porous rock, with no confirmed origin point and no clearly mapped endpoint. Its boundaries, even now, remain officially incomplete. A river that stretches thousands of kilometers, hidden beneath another river, with no known beginning and no known end. If you were standing at the surface, the water beneath your feet would already be somewhere you will never see. And the deeper we look in the Amazon, the less the ground feels like solid ground. 8. The electric predator. For 2 centuries, science assumed it knew exactly what the electric eel was. One species, well documented, understood. In 2019, that assumption collapsed. Genetic analysis confirmed that what we had been calling a single species was actually 3 entirely separate ones, living in the same river systems, largely indistinguishable to the naked eye. One of them, Electrophorus volti, produces an electrical discharge of up to 860 volts, the highest of any known living animal on Earth, strong enough to trigger involuntary muscle failure in a full-grown human, strong enough, documented cases confirm, to incapacitate a horse. We had been underestimating it for 200 years. But the voltage isn't what concerns researchers most. What concerns them is the behavior. Electric eels are not social animals. They don't hunt in groups, except increasingly they do. Recent fieldwork captured coordinated hunting formations. Multiple individuals herding prey together, timing their discharges in sequence, driving fish into tighter and tighter clusters before striking simultaneously. Cooperation strategy in an animal that wasn't supposed to be capable of. The electricity was always the obvious danger. It turns out the intelligence was the part we weren't paying attention to. And in the same waters where the eels hunt, something else has been changing its behavior too. 7. The water that bites back. Most people picture piranhas as a Hollywood exaggeration, frenzied, chaotic, overhyped. That assumption is becoming harder to defend during Amazonian drought cycles, when river levels drop and water pools begin to shrink. Piranha behavior shifts in a way that researchers describe as methodical. Schools of several hundred individuals have been observed herding large mammals, tapirs, caimans, animals that would normally be apex threats in that environment, into increasingly shallow water, cutting off escape routes. Waiting, the attacks are not frenzied, they are patient. What is escalating this further is climate. As drought cycles in the Amazon grow longer and more severe, the conditions that trigger this behavior are becoming more frequent. Piranhas are not just reacting to their environment, they are adapting to it, and the adaptation is moving in one direction, but it is the unexplained findings that sit differently. On at least 2 documented expeditions into remote tributaries, researchers recovered carcasses, large ones, stripped in a pattern inconsistent with any known piranha school size in the area. The water was too shallow for caiman, too remote for human activity. The estimated biomass required to produce that kind of result didn't match anything surveyed in those river systems. Something fed there in volume, and whatever it wasn't accounted for. The Amazon's water doesn't just move. In certain places, at certain times, it consumes. 6. The anaconda problem. Until recently, science recognized one green anaconda, one species. The largest snake on Earth by mass, capable of reaching lengths beyond 8 meters, weights beyond 200 kilograms. A predator with no natural enemies, an animal that has existed, largely unchanged, for millions of years. In 2024, that changed. Genetic sequencing confirmed a second species, the northern green anaconda, distinct enough from its southern relative to warrant an entirely separate classification. And the preliminary size data coming out of remote northern tributaries is not sitting comfortably with the researchers who collected it. The measurements are being verified. They have not been published in full. What has been published is the behavioral data, and that is where the tone of the research changes. Anacondas are ambush predators. They wait, they strike once, they don't pursue, they don't follow. That is the established understanding, repeated across every field study for decades. Indigenous communities along certain restricted tributaries describe something different. Anacondas that surface beside boats, that reappear, that don't retreat when approached. Behavior that doesn't fit the documented profile of any known specimen. Researchers have noted these accounts. Few have commented on them publicly. If you were moving through those waterways at night, this is where the silence would feel wrong. Not because of what you could see on the surface, because of what you couldn't see beneath it. The water has been hiding things far older than we are comfortable acknowledging. 5. The river that boils deep in the Peruvian Amazon. There is a river that kills everything that falls into it. Not through predators, not through current, through heat. For 6 kilometers, the water temperature reaches up to 91 degrees Celsius. Animals that stumble in, and they don't survive long enough to reach the bank. The water doesn't just burn at that temperature. Proteins denature, cells rupture from the inside. What enters the river is not what comes out the other side. Geologists have a straightforward explanation for boiling rivers. Volcanic activity, magma chambers close to the surface, heating groundwater from below. It is a well-understood mechanism, except the nearest volcanic fault to Chennai, Timpishka, is more than 700 kilometers away. There is no geological explanation that fully accounts for what this river is doing, or why it is doing it here. The heat source remains, officially, unknown. The local Ashvaninka people have known about this river for generations. They don't treat it as an anomaly. They treat it as a boundary. Their shamans describe it as the point where the world above and whatever lies beneath it come closest to touching. A threshold, not a river. Science has not offered a better explanation. What it has offered is a restricted research perimeter, an incomplete thermal mapping study, and a heat output reading that continues to climb year on year with no identified cause. The Amazon has places that should not exist by any known rule of geology, and the deeper we move into the forest, the more the rules stop applying. 4. The people who refuse contact there are people living in the Amazon right now who have never seen the outside world. Not because they don't know it exists, because they have chosen deliberately and consistently to reject it. Brazil's Indigenous Affairs Agency, FUNAI, has documented over 100 uncontacted tribes within Amazonian territory. Some have been observed from the air for decades. Some have made their position clear with arrows fired at low-flying aircraft. The message is not ambiguous. What makes this more than a story about isolation is what the aerial surveys have started returning. LiDAR imaging and restricted drone footage have identified geometric clearings in areas of the Amazon that fall outside any mapped tribal territory. Precise clearings arranged in patterns that don't correspond to agricultural use, to settlement layouts, or to any architectural tradition associated with known Amazonian tribes. Structures that appear maintained active but unattributed. FUNAI has not publicly commented on several of these sites. The deeper question isn't who these people are. It is what they know that we don't. Communities have existed inside the Amazon for thousands of years, navigating ecosystems that continue to confuse modern science. Their pharmacological knowledge alone, the plants they use, the compounds they've identified, has repeatedly outpaced formal research by generations. They are not hiding because they are primitive. The evidence increasingly suggests the opposite. There are places in that forest that no outside human has ever entered. And somewhere in those places, people are living who have decided that whatever is out here with us is not worth the risk of contact. That decision should give us pause. 3. The lost cities beneath the trees for centuries. Stories of a vast hidden civilization buried beneath the Amazon were treated as myth. El Dorado, the lost city of Zed, the fantasies of explorers who had spent too long in the heat. Then we pointed laser technology at the canopy, and the jungle gave up its secrets. LiDAR, light detection, and ranging fires millions of laser pulses through dense forest cover, mapping what exists beneath the leaves at ground level. What it returned from the Amazon was not what anyone was prepared for. Roads, plazas, causeways, irrigation networks, the skeletal outline of urban systems stretching across hundreds of square kilometers, swallowed so completely by vegetation that centuries of ground-level exploration had missed them entirely. The civilization that built these structures was not small. By current estimates, it supported populations in the millions. It predated European contact. And then, at some point that researchers have not been able to precisely identify, it stopped, not declined, not migrated stock. What they left behind is in some ways more puzzling than the cities themselves. The soil throughout these sites, a dark, carbon-rich earth the indigenous people call terra preta, is unlike any naturally occurring soil on Earth. It is extraordinarily fertile. It is self-regenerating, and despite decades of laboratory analysis, science has not been able to fully replicate it or explain the biological processes sustaining it. A civilization capable of engineering living soil that outlasts the civilization itself by thousands of years. We found their cities. We cannot explain what they knew, and we still don't know what ended them. Number 2, the vampire and the canopy vampire bats have existed in the Amazon for millions of years. They are small, largely misunderstood, and for most of recorded history considered a manageable presence in the ecosystems they inhabit. That assessment is changing. Documented cases of vampire bats feeding on humans have increased significantly across remote Amazonian communities over the past 2 decades. Not isolated incidents, recurring visitations. The same colonies returning to the same settlements night after night, targeting sleeping individuals with a precision that researchers describe as deliberate. Their saliva contains an anticoagulant compound so effective that victims frequently don't wake during feeding. The wound doesn't clot, the blood doesn't stop. The medical consequence is not the bite itself. It is what the bite carries. The rabies strong circulating in Amazonian vampire bat populations has a fatality rate approaching 100% in unvaccinated individuals, once symptoms present, and the colonies carrying it are moving, expanding their range toward river systems that border uncontacted tribal territories, communities with no exposure, no immunity, and no access to post-exposure treatment. But what has shifted the tone of recent research isn't the feeding or the virus, it is the behavior. A 2023 study documented vampire bat colonies engaging in coordinated hunting formations, previously observed only in mammalian predators with complex social structures. Surrounding targets, positioning sentinels, timing approaches for an animal that was never classified as a strategic hunter. The implications are significant and largely unaddressed in mainstream reporting. Something in the Amazon is evolving faster than our understanding of it, and we have saved the one discovery that no one is talking about for last. Number 1. The thing in the jar in 2019. A small research team operating in a restricted tributary in the western Amazon collected an organism. It was catalogued, photographed, preserved, assigned a temporary genus designation in a preliminary study submitted through a Brazilian federal research institution. 18 months later, the study was withdrawn. No explanation was attached to the withdrawal. The researchers involved requested reassignment to separate projects in different regions. The requests were granted quickly, quietly. The tributary they were working in was subsequently added to a restricted access list. Independent expedition applications for that waterway have been declined without stated reason every year since. What the organism was has never been publicly confirmed. The temporary genus designation has never been formally rejected or replaced. It exists in the scientific record as an incomplete file, open, unresolved, untouched. Researchers familiar with the case, speaking without attribution, have described the organism as parasitic, adaptive, displaying biological mechanisms that didn't correspond cleanly to any known taxonomic category. One description, recorded in a since-archived interview, used a phrase that doesn't appear anywhere else in the formal literature surrounding the case. Behaviorally, novel, not dangerous, not harmless. Novel. The jar in which it was preserved was photographed once by a team member before the study was pulled. That photograph circulates in specific academic circles. It has never been formally addressed by the institution involved. Whatever was collected in that river in 2019 is still classified, still unnamed, still sitting somewhere in a facility that has never confirmed its existence. The Amazon didn't give that thing up willingly, and there is no record of anyone going back to look for more. The Amazon is still out there, breathing, watching, keeping its secrets the way it always has, not by concealing them, but by making sure we are never quite ready to understand them. The jar has never been explained, and somewhere in that forest, something is still living in the river we are no longer allowed to visit.